Hashtag psychotherapy unfogged with Mark Fielding.
Hello, welcome to Series 6, Episode 2 of Hashtag Psychotherapy Unfogged, where I have the absolute pleasure today to interview Logan Baker, Director of Pantheon Support Services and the Ageas Foundation Australia and mental health advocate. So going forwards, we'll ask a lot about Logan's work and also get into some of the things that he does. So really nice for you to come on the show, Logan. For coming on and nice to meet you.
No, thank you very much for having me,
Brilliant.
Legend. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Brilliant. So can we kick off? Can I ask you a little bit around who you are? Can you tell a little bit, can you tell our listeners, big question, I know. Can you tell our
Yeah,
listeners a little bit about you?
sure can. Yeah, if you ask my family and things, I'm sure they'd have a different sort of outlook. But so I'll give you a bit of a rundown on me. So I was born and bred on the Gold Coast in Australia. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So I was born on the Gold Coast. At an early age, I sort of moved up to the Sunshine Coast, which is about around about 2 hours north of the Gold Coast. Went to school up here. And then after finishing school on the Sunshine Coast, I went to the University of the Sunshine Coast, at which time I did a bachelor degree in business marketing. So that's kind of served me fairly well moving into what I'm doing now. But prior to that, obviously, 18, I was a security guard as of 18. So I got straight into the security industry as soon as I was able to. And that was really, really great for me because I was able to sort of do university on the side and then do all the night shift stuff and all the bouncing and everything like that on the weekends and at night time. So it was quite a flexible decision for me to make. Through that time, I sort of had a lot of injuries and things from sustained at work, from fights and things like that occurred. And then it kind of gave me a bit of time to reassess my job, sort of where I was at with my job and everything like that, because I had to get a full knee reconstruction. I've actually been diagnosed with post-concussion syndrome, and I have a 5% mental impairment now due to trauma from that job. So gave me a bit of time to sort of reassess my priorities, I guess.
Yeah.
And then that led me into the pharmaceutical sales space. So I was able to leverage my degree and actually get into a space where I was educating doctors all through the state that I live in. So during that process, I was promoting in various mental health disease states.
Mm,
My favorite being schizophrenia. That was a very interesting, state to sort of promote in.
mm,
I did psoriasis, type 2 diabetes, smoking addiction. Yeah, there was a few others as well. But yeah, so I did that for about 3 years. And then at which point I sort of wanted to get out of the sales industry because I felt that within myself, I didn't really mesh too well with the sort of the messaging and everything like that. It didn't
mm,
come across to me very authentic. So I wanted to sort of get into something a little bit more authentic. And that's when I decided to look into the disability space.
mm,
So myself and two of my other mates and business partners, we started a organization called Pantheon Support Services, where we basically utilize a government scheme in Australia called NDIS, which stands for National Disability Insurance Scheme. I don't know if you guys have similar
yeah,
in the
similar.
UK or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool, sweet. So we basically operate now, and all the owners of our organization are either ex-military or security. And then basically, we're one of the only businesses now that get referrals straight out of our local hospital. So we work primarily with a lot of people who've had stroke and things like that due
Mm,
to drug use. We
mm,
have, ex-criminals and things like that who've been through the jail system their whole life, and now they've come out. And they still have a lot of those really engraved behaviors. And our ex-military and security staff are the ones who can handle those situations. So it made sense for us to build sort of a bit of a business around that. And now we have multiple houses on the Sunshine Coast where we basically house these NDIS participants, and it's kind of transitional housing to sort of reintegrate them. So they get discharged out of the hospital system. We take them for up to 90 days within our SIL houses, and some of them stay there long term as well.
mm,
However, we're able to sort of house them there and look after them adequately and all that type of stuff. And then, yeah, so that's sort of where I'm at with that business at the moment. And then the other organization that was sort of just kicked up within the last few weeks quite hard is called Aegis Foundation Australia, but
Yeah.
it's called Aegis Online. And the basis of
Mm,
that is a mental health centered organization. We do promote a lot with ex-military and security personnel because obviously that's our background as well.
mm,
But just trying to make a safe community space for people to come, debrief and talk about their day if they feel like it. Obviously, a lot of men don't necessarily talk about their feelings and
no,
stuff. It's
true.
quite hard to open up sometimes. So
Mm,
having a medium that is low friction in the virtual space, which
mm,
they can sort of partake in a community sort of event and feel that camaraderie and
mm,
friendship and stuff like that is sometimes all people need. And if
mm,
I've through doing what I do on Instagram as well, all the mental health advocacy and stuff like that. I've had messages from heaps of people saying they've been able to get off drugs because of me. They're now looking to educate themselves and move into something that they're passionate about and help other people and all that kind of stuff. So I'm actually starting to really see some fruits of my labor with the advocacy and the awareness and the gratitude based perspective mindset that I'm trying to promote through my social media and everything as well. And that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
mm. Yeah, I mean, goodness me. I mean, what all of the things that you've done, amazing, really. So starting off, yeah, going to university and going into security, but I guess you've got quite a strong entrepreneurial spirit as well. I mean, I guess you've created. I mean, look, just taking one of these things, the Aegis Foundation. I mean, what an amazing space. And do you find this? Often I think in the counselling world, people really other counsellors poo online and stuff. But my feeling is that sometimes, especially for people, especially for men often that find it difficult to kind of open up, there's something a bit
Mm.
safer about the online space. I don't know whether you find the same thing. There's something safe
Oh,
about a group.
100%.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
easier, isn't
it's
it?
it's it's lower friction. And
Yeah.
we find a lot more people are more comfortable to open up about their experiences and their struggles and thing in the online space due to the
Yeah.
lack of friction.
Yeah.
You don't have someone who's sitting in front of you, and there is that disconnect from the sort of hostility that a lot of people,
Mm,
I guess, from our sort of backgrounds. We go into counsel. I've been to therapy, I've been to psychologists and stuff like that, and it
mm,
can be very abrasive and it feels very
mm,
awkward to talk about your feelings and where you're
mm,
at and your thoughts and all that if they're not particularly good, because I've had a lot of my own struggles in life as well, and I'd really like to help mentor younger men as well to try to get over those struggles as well. If I can be a soundboard for someone, or if I can share my experiences in the hope that that I can then better that person's life, then that's my validation that I need, and that's the purpose that I've found within the last 2 years. And it's taken me up until this point. I'm turning 29 this year, and it's taken me this time to basically find what I'm passionate about, which has been great. And I'm so happy with where I'm at as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and there's really something. I mean, there's really something about, I think, transmuting your own suffering into helping others. I mean, probably anyone in the mental health field is going to understand that, and this is partly why we're drawn to the mental health field. I mean, just as much as you're happy to say, Logan, could you say a little bit around the struggles that you've had to push through
Yeah, of
in
course.
terms
Yeah.
of mental health in your life?
Yeah. So love my dad to bits. He's a great guy. He's one of my best friends now. When I was younger, I couldn't really relate, I guess, to where he was at. And obviously, as a kid and things, you don't see the inner workings of your parents' relationships and stuff like that.
No.
But at a very, very young age, I was a very anxious kid. And that anxiety was only reinforced when I went to school. I had some struggles at school. I didn't really fit in super well anywhere. I just didn't really feel like I fit in. Yeah, I had some friends and things like that as well, but I didn't really feel the connection, I guess, that I probably should have.
Mm.
And then during that time, there was things happening at school that I wasn't really happy with, and people, kids are mean and stuff. So,
Yeah, can
but
be.
then I'd go home as well, and I'd not really get any sort of much positive reinforcement for good things I did because it was more focused on the stuff I wasn't doing.
Mm.
And my dad's ex-military. He was quite a quite a strict parent growing up, and now I can honestly say that I wouldn't change it for the world, being the
Mm.
age I am now, because I bring those values and morals into my
Yeah.
life,
Mm.
and I do really respect that as an adult. But
Mm.
at the time, obviously, it's quite abrasive living in a fairly rigid household, I
mm,
guess.
mm,
I'd go home and I'd not get sort of validation and things, and I have a really I still struggle with it now, but it's gotten a lot better. But I've had a lot of self-worth problems in the past leading up through school and things. And when you're overthinking and constantly have this inner dialogue about how inadequate you are as a
mm,
person, how
yeah,
you're not, you're not intelligent enough or
yeah,
whatever it is, and you're not really getting that reinforcement from home or school, then you just
mm,
start believing it. So,
true.
my schooling life, I believe I sort of brainwashed myself really to think that I wasn't good enough. And that's something that I've had to try to counteract in my adult life.
Mm,
So during that time, my parents' relationship broke down. I was living with my mum. She was going through a lot, obviously, at the time. My dad was actually homeless at the time
okay,
for a period as well.
yeah,
And I was having to kind of be the emotional support for my mum, and I wasn't even
mm,
18 yet or anything like that.
mm,
So just trying to work through all that type of thing. I had some
mm,
body image issues as well. I was quite a big kid.
yeah,
That obviously goes hand in hand with sort of how you're treated at school sometimes and
yeah,
things
can
too.
do. Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, I basically just kept feeling worse and worse about myself leading up to, towards the end of school. At the end of school, that's 18, I went and got my security license immediately. And that's when I sort of, it just got worse basically from that point.
okay,
So I've suffered from suicidal ideation on multiple occasions,
yeah, yeah,
and things like that. I've really struggled. And there was nights I was just like, I'm just done, like I'm
yeah,
just over it.
yeah,
And you can't really express that mindset until you've lived it yourself, because it's easy to say, but it's such a rabbit hole. And this is the analogy
yeah,
that I sort of use is that suicidal ideation is and depression as a whole, I guess, is like a rabbit hole. Um, and sometimes you get too far into it that only your feet are poking out the end and you can't get yourself out. So you
mm,
need other people and external, stimulus to
mm,
grab your feet and pull you out of that situation, whatever that is. That could be hobbies, that could be loved ones, that could be exercise. These are all
yeah,
things that are quite
yeah,
positive for our mental state.
mm,
So
mm,
that's after the fact, looking back on that whole experience, trying to not be here anymore and things.
yeah,
I'm quite happy that I was able to persevere through that and now really have started finding
mm,
myself as an adult. And now I want to be able to share those experiences and make sure that young men and women don't feel
mm,
like they're alone, and
mm,
there is someone to talk to. That's not necessarily a counselor or anything. I do have my Cert 4 in mental health, and
yeah,
I am studying counseling at the moment.
yeah,
However, I'm not actually there yet. So, but I want to be that soundboard for people, and that's
mm,
exactly what I promote through my social media and my Instagram as
mm,
well.
mm. Yeah, I mean, your Instagram account, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, there's so much, mental health advice, and
Mm,
I guess it's always helpful. I mean, even though, there has been a lot of suffering, I guess, often, not always, but often, I guess when people have had difficult kind of times growing up, there can be quite a lot of accelerated personal growth. And I get that from you, actually. I mean, you've pushed through a lot, and that takes a lot of kind of resilience, a lot of inner strength, but it also gives a little bit of accelerated personal growth because there's a lot of growth inherent in that. I
yeah,
mean, and I guess it must be really helpful. I mean, when you're sitting in groups with men, men from the military, ex-security, I guess the fact that you've kind of come from that world must help them feel confident in opening up to you, perhaps more
yeah,
so than maybe a counselor that comes from a very different kind of, I don't know, class or social
yeah.
background. It must be easier for them because you understand really where they're coming from.
It is 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
So just recently, actually, we ran a range day, where we actually booked out a gun range, a local gun range, and we all met up.
yeah,
And then all the boys got to shoot and everything. We had we were able to put out little fire extinguishers and stuff like that and blow them up and all that kind of fun stuff. So, and that is an amazing mental health outlet for a lot of guys.
yeah.
And my business partner, who's also ex-military as well, he really doesn't have many emotions that you see anyway.
Mhm.
But yeah, he was after he came away from that and he was super positive and was just like, I had the best day, and so it was really validating to kind of, help those people and make something relevant for them and do an initiative like that and go, book out a whole gun range and then just have us, there just enjoying the mateship and the camaraderie and then
Yeah.
building that relationship. And, it just helps to build further that relationship as well. So you do feel more comfortable opening up to
Yeah.
other people in that sort of community as well. So it's honestly a win-win. And like I said, I'm stoked to be able to help people. I love that I'm doing that. I'm what I'm doing. And, I've got people in America and Canada at the moment who are sending me like paintings and stuff like that because they're so appreciative of
Yeah, that's
of the things
amazing.
that I do and say.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
make myself available usually about 3 times a week on my social media
Mm,
for anyone who's struggling, who just wants someone to talk to, just so
mm,
you don't feel alone. And, I've had people who are suicidal and things like that. And obviously,
mm,
I escalate that appropriately
mm,
where need be. However, most of the time they come out of that conversation saying, I am so grateful for you. Thank you so
mm,
much.
mm.
And now I've been doing it for a little bit now, and I'm really starting to see a lot more people interacting with me and being more
Yeah.
receptive and stuff like that. But obviously, that comes with boundaries as well. You need to put those boundaries in place so I don't get burnt out. Also, I'm a multiple business owner as well. I've
Mm.
got 5 organizations on the go, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to do the social media thing and everything at the same time too to try to help people. So I'm a busy guy, and that's why I've got the big dark circles under my eyes all the time. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in terms of some of them, obviously you don't have to go into, any particulars, but you must hear a lot of trauma really from some of the men in the
Mm.
aviation group.
Yeah,
I
well,
just, yeah,
even women, like
yeah.
I've
Okay.
got there's actually currently, I won't say names or anything obviously.
Right.
However, there's a woman in Bali who's reached out to me.
Yeah.
And she's actually stuck in prostitution there because she has no other means to be able to make money.
Wow.
So she's reached out to me. I don't even know how she's come across my page,
Mm,
but it's happened. And
mm,
I've had a lot of really good discussions with her. She's been suicidal as well, saying that, I don't want to be here, like I have to use my body to make money and all these kinds of things. So you just, instead of, trying to address the whole issue, I like to sort of break it down. Okay, so what is
mm,
something that you can do to change your
mm,
immediate situation? What are you
mm,
not happy about in your current situation? And what is the easiest, smallest step that you can possibly do right now
mm.
that is going to, be a stepping stone to then rectifying the
Right.
issues that you're
Yeah.
having? And we were able to have some discussion around that and work out, a bit of a game plan for her to sort of get back on track to where she wants to be.
Mm,
Even just putting in the groundwork and just trying to template something up has given her
mm,
more worth, and she
mm.
can kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel instead of just being and just
Yeah.
in this gloom of despair. That's one that I've worked on for probably over a couple month period. Like she'll be
Mm,
messaging me struggling here and there, but she's
mm,
making those moves, and I'm really proud of her for doing that, and I'm really grateful that someone feels comfortable to talk to me about that stuff, especially a woman as well.
yeah.
It's fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's something really powerful in, having somebody to talk to and just both being able to maybe step out of the situation, look at it, and then work out strategies in order to kind of, to move forward. Not always easy when you're on your own, actually, and there's lots of circular thinking and goodness me, I mean, that's amazing, really. So,
Mm,
so there must be a lot of fulfillment, Logan. I mean, with a lot of the people that, that you work with, I mean, yeah,
yeah.
it must be a very, very fulfilling role, really. I mean, just
Yeah,
just
I haven't I've
really.
honestly not been as happy as I am right now
Yeah,
in my life. So, I've always really struggled with self-worth, like I said earlier,
yeah,
and depression and stuff like that because
yeah,
of the inadequacies I've seen myself, and I'm never good enough, and I'm not doing
yeah,
enough, I'm not smart enough.
yeah,
So doing what I'm doing now actually brings me so much validation in
yeah,
my own existence, and I feel like I
mm,
have a purpose.
mm,
And that's the biggest thing. And, that'd be my advice actually stepping away from this is don't rush into trying to find yourself. Let it happen organically and play to your
mm.
strengths. Because if you can do that, you're going to be successful at whatever you do at life. We're all individuals, and we all bring something different to the table. And, the
True.
sooner that you realize that, the more you're going to find your own fulfillment in life because you're going to focus on the things you're good at. And for me, like I'm quite an empathetic person, I'm covered in
Yeah,
tattoos and stuff like that. And you wouldn't necessarily think that I'm quite an emotional person, but I really
mm,
am.
mm,
And I like having those types of discussions and
mm,
quite deep discussion. And if I can help or benefit someone from that, that just brings me so much happiness,
mm,
genuinely. So
mm.
yeah.
Yeah, and capacity for empathy, and I guess all of this, you're kind of to then you're training as a counsellor, so I guess you'll be taking that, into the counselling space. I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of kind of you pushing through a kind of narrative of low self-worth. I mean, looking back, Logan, what was your process of doing that? Because this is quite common for lots and lots of people for lots of different reasons, isn't it? To grow up and have a very low, idea about, who they are. I mean, what's been your process of kind of pushing through that and
Hmm.
getting to where you are today, would you say?
Yeah, so I lost myself for a number of years.
Yeah.
Um, and through that process, I really found the things about myself and, who I let into my life. Um, I really found a lot of things that I didn't like. So nowadays I sort of put a emphasis and focus on who I have in my life. Number one, they need to be positive. I have a very small circle around me. I used to have a big, net of people around me that everyone's so fair weather. Once you find who are genuinely your people, you're going to have the support that you need to be able to kind
Mm,
of get yourself out
true.
of that situation as well.
Yeah.
In terms of getting myself out of the self-worth issues that I was having, it probably wasn't honestly until I started, being a little successful, like with my businesses and things like that. It kind of gave
Mm,
me that reassurance and that validation that I am good enough. And I brought my dad into the business as well, and I assist, by making him money and things like that. And I get that.
mm,
I now get that validation from my family, and I was always seeking it from my brother, my older brother, and I was always seeking it from my dad. And now
mm,
that they can see that I'm doing well,
mm,
I've gained their respect in a way
mm,
as well. Because in the past, I don't think that the security industry is particularly a respectful industry. Like I did the bouncing on the doors and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
But I also did private security as well. I'm not actually able to talk about that because it's under NDA.
Okay.
But I did do stuff for the government and for a VIP as well.
Mm, mm,
And that was good and quite lucrative too. However, it's still the security industry. So I got out of that and became a working professional, and I sort of
mm,
gained that respect from my family, and that really compounded the validation and the worth that I saw in myself because it was reflective. Because I seeked it from my dad and brother for
yeah,
for many years, and now that I'm getting it, I'm feeling a lot better about myself too because I feel like I'm on the right track for once.
yeah.
So that's sort of how I've combated it. And you have to do it yourself. There's no one else that can do it for you. Self-worth is something that if you seek from other people, then you're reliant on it, on receiving it from other
Mm,
people.
yeah.
Whereas you need to seek it within yourself. You need to find that within yourself and be content within yourself.
Mm,
And that's obviously whatever that looks like for individuals. It's different for everyone, and everyone's
mm,
circumstances are different as well. And
mm.
that's the great thing about mental health too. Like it's never boring, is it? You're
Well,
constantly in a
no.
state of changing environments or whatever it is. So
Yeah,
yeah, but that was my process of sort of building my own self-worth up again, I guess.
yeah, it's really, really interesting. And, it's so important to hear men talking about this kind of stuff. I don't know what it's like, in Australia, but over here, it is improving. Some celebrities, some male celebrities have come out and talked about mental health. There was one famous cricketer talking about, his struggles with bulimia on TV the other day. So there is a slight kind of change, but I just think there's a way to go, really. But I don't know whether you'd agree with this, but a lot of men, will still internalize, there's still loads of messaging for men growing up about shutting your feelings down, being strong, man up, all that kind of really unhelpful stuff. I don't know whether you find the same in terms of the messaging that men get,
Yeah. Yeah,
explicitly or,
no,
or not growing up.
yeah. So how are you guys for swearing on the podcast, by the way?
Oh,
The F
it's
word.
fine, you can swear. Yeah.
It's fine. Okay, yeah. So it's just a
Yeah.
quote anyway. But yeah, so basically the sort of ethos that I grew up in when I was a child was, if you're having a bad day, drink a cup of concrete and harden the fuck up. And that was basically what I got told all the time.
I mean, I'm
And
smiling,
that's
but that's so unhelpful, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah,
So, but that's also an older demographic mindset as
it
well.
is.
We have so much awareness and so much connectivity nowadays. And coming from an ex-military background, like my
Mm.
dad didn't know any better, and that's how he was brought
No.
up.
Yeah.
So, and you're a byproduct of your surroundings and your environment and your upbringing and everything like that. You can either let it define you or you can change it to how,
Mm,
you want to live your own life.
mm,
And that's exactly what I did as well. And I'm more than happy to be emotional with people. And I feel like, my background and the way I look as well actually helps people come out of their shell more because it's like,
Definitely.
okay, well, if this guy can do it, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying I'm a hard guy or anything like that, but at the end of the day, there's a perception of people who look like me as well. And if I can talk about
True.
feelings and how
Yeah.
how I'm feeling and how can I help you and how are you feeling today, and really really prompt those questions out of people, then they're going to be like, oh, well, if he's doing it, I might be able to do it. And I
So
think that's
true.
why also I get a bit of that's why I get some positive sort of feedback with what I'm doing as well, especially from the male demographic, because they sort of look at me and be like, oh, that's amazing that you're doing that. So yeah,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, I guess there's a whole conversation to be had around, I don't know, tattoos and, misperceptions that people have
yeah,
around, guys or indeed, well, probably more so with guys, but women with tattoos, hopefully that is passing out now. But I guess it is just, kind of showing up as a male, with tattoos, you go to the gym, but also really being connected with, your compassionate side, empathy. Yeah, I mean, I guess it must really men probably find it very, very easy to talk to you, and then they kind of open up and
yeah.
and they share a little bit. I mean, can I just ask you, what do you do to look after your own mental health? I mean, what do you tend
Yeah,
to do,
so
Logan? Yeah,
I had actually had a period of my life where I had to get a full knee reconstruction from fighting in
yeah,
security.
wow,
So
yeah,
I was out obviously for a number of weeks, and I had a lot of complications with my knee. In the surgeon report, it was obliterated. That's what he stated.
wow,
So I had to get everything. I've got two screws in my knee now. I've had other surgeries and stuff related to
yeah,
that. So I was in chronic pain for a while, and then I sort of that's when I got into the pharmaceutical industry. But then I still wasn't dealing with what was going on in my head at the
mm,
time, and it kind
mm,
of just came to a point when I was doing pharmaceutical sales, and I basically couldn't leave the house. I had so much anxiety about going into society and people being behind me and like all these things, and that's when I was diagnosed with PTSD as
yeah,
well.
it's the trauma, yeah,
Um, yeah, so that's something that I've been dealing with for a long time too, like nightmares and all that type of stuff as well,
yeah,
which is sorted now. But yeah, that was a thing in the past.
yeah.
Um, but
Well,
yeah,
that,
so that
yeah,
it's really it's quite tangible sometimes because of the head knocks and stuff. I'll be mid sentence and I'll
mm,
forget where I'm at. I'll kind of just be like,
mm,
I'll reach a dead end. So
yeah.
yeah, if I do that throughout the discussion, let me know.
But how do you deal with that? I mean, in terms of kind of the brain injury, I guess. I mean, I'm guessing you've got strategies for it. You developed, have you? It
Yeah,
must be difficult, Logan. That.
it is kind of hard, having a discussion, especially when you're in a role as well where you're supposed to be talking all the time, and if you lose train of thought or something like that, you kind of look like a bit of an idiot. Um, so usually when I go into podcasts and stuff, I actually start off by letting everyone know that initially, because if I do
Yeah,
sort of tangent off or whatever, it is I've been told it's due to that. So
yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, for my mental health and everything as well, like I've just gotten back into training. So a few years ago, I got two herniated discs in my lower back. I would travel to the US. I'm half American, so I have a dual citizenship to America.
Okay,
I was training at an LA Fitness over there, and I blew my back, and I had to get put on a flight in business class because I couldn't stand up, and I was in so much pain. And that's still ongoing now. So I've currently still got an injury in my lower back. It's so much better than it was.
okay.
I couldn't even walk when I got back to Australia it was
Wow.
like 2.5 years ago.
Yeah,
So I was in chronic pain for that long as well. I started drinking to kind of deal with that.
yeah.
Um, and I put on a ton of weight. So at this point where I am right now, I've lost over 30 something kilograms
Mm,
since then, which
mm,
is fantastic, and it alleviates that issue with my back too. But like
yeah.
those were the things going on in my head all the time, and I don't know if you've ever had chronic pain, but it's one of those things that just digs away at your brain every minute of every day, and
Yeah.
it really starts getting to you. So I've cut out the alcohol. I'm actually doing dry 2025.
Okay.
And I'm training a lot as well. So I'm back doing cardio again on the bike. It's just low
Mm,
impact on my back. So it's kind of the
yeah.
only cardio that I can do apart from like
Yeah.
the stair machine
Yeah.
and walking. But
Yeah.
gym has been a lifesaver for me. I used to train twice a day when I did security. Nowadays, I try to go probably about 4 times a week if I can,
Yeah.
time permitting. But that has probably been the biggest. positive impact on my brain, on me being able to deal with my day-to-day
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And you really don't understand the benefits of it until you go do a session. And then
Very
afterwards, you feel
true.
like crap straight after. But then, you get
Mm,
home, you feel like, oh, okay, cool. And you get those endorphins pumping and everything like
mm,
that. And you just have
mm,
this great feeling afterwards. So that's been a
mm.
lifesaver for me. And it's helped
Yeah.
with my mental clarity and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mm.
physical exercise has probably been my go-to and the one thing that I can do at this point in time to assist with my mental state.
Yeah, and I really want to resonate with that. I mean, I mean, I go to the gym as well, do a lot of resistance training, and goodness me, I mean, I've always done exercise. I used to play squash back in the day, back in the Stone
Yeah.
Age. I used to play squash and
Oh,
tennis
mate,
and
you're
stuff.
25, mate.
Yeah,
What are you talking
I
about?
wish I was 25. But now I kind of, yeah, similar to you, I go to the gym like 4 times a week, and oh my
Hmm.
God, I mean, physical exercise. Different people have different capacities to do physical exercise. I had to put that caveat in, but the benefits on your mental health of
Yeah,
cardio resistance training. I mean, it's just massive, isn't it, really?
it's huge.
Feelings of
Huge.
well-being after a session, even being in the gym. I mean, there's even something really nice about being in the gym as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really resonate with what you're saying. I mean, let's
Yeah.
just move around a little bit. I mean, I want to talk about a bit more about your kind of mental health advocacy and your
Yeah.
Instagram page. So we'll obviously put all of your links up with our show notes. But if
Yeah.
people want to find you on Instagram, how do they find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is logan.r.baker.
Yeah,
And yeah, you can follow me on that. I basically put up stories every single day, and
yeah.
the point of doing and posting the stories that I do is to sort of grow your perspective on life. Because my whole thing lately has been like I've had a bit of a life. I'm 28, but I've seen and done a lot.
You've done a
Um,
lot.
and you
Yeah,
Yeah, and I've seen, a lot of bad things. I've seen a lot of good things.
yeah.
And I attribute my holistic viewpoint of the world due to my perspective that I've gained. So my hope is for people to sort of put an emphasis on gratitude in their life, and grow their perspective so that, they can look more holistically at a situation
Mm,
and then make the best sort of educated decision with the knowledge that you've been given. So everything is on, like, there's quotes from Marcus Aurelius and old philosophers and all this type of stuff.
yeah.
One of my favorite philosophers is Alan Watts. And
Oh,
I really
love Alan
I really
Watts.
like his
Yeah,
work. Yeah, so he's amazing.
yeah.
And when people are struggling at times and things, I said, is it nighttime? And there's like, yeah, 'cause a lot of them are in Australia. I said, how about there's no clouds in the sky. If you really want to see how big your problems are, how about you go stand outside and look up at the stars and realize how small and minute you are as an individual in this galaxy.
Mm,
And then think about the thought in your brain, which is nothing more than a little like speck in your brain, a
so
little
true.
light, a little electron firing,
Yeah.
you know? And then that sort of perspective brings the anxiety and everything sort of down. That's what I found from my
Mm,
personal experience. So
mm,
all of my friends who are struggling,
mm.
I said, let's come over to my house. We'll just look at the stars. We'll look up, we'll look at the
Yeah,
stars, and we'll reassess. And
yeah.
you can actually see how little your issues truly are.
Mm,
In the grand scheme of things, we're here for a
yeah,
cosmic blimp, and it's sort of like,
yeah.
instead of using your time
True.
to stress, worry, be depressed and anxious about things, let's just change our mindset. This is just a thing. It's just a thing to learn from. We're here for such a short time. We need to enjoy it.
Mm,
So yeah, that's kind of the perspective basis
mm,
that I'm trying to build in people's minds. And if people can put an emphasis on gratitude and what they're grateful for, I think every single person on this planet has something they can be grateful for. Western society, we have a lot, but then you look in
we do.
Africa and things like that, they still draw breath. They may not be an amputee or something like that. There's always something to be grateful
There
for, no
is.
matter your situation. And if you focus on that,
Mm,
then your life will be a lot more. It'll be full of gratitude,
mm,
full of things that you truly can be grateful for.
mm,
And that's what I try to promote through my social media.
mm.
And I've partnered alongside this brand actually as well. This is New Chapter, the label. So they're a clothing brand that's based around mental health.
Oh,
So
fab.
I
Yeah,
wanted to wear this today to kind of promote them as well, but
yeah.
they're really, really great. The lady who owns that is such a mental health advocate as well. And all the people involved are super great, and I couldn't recommend them enough.
Mm.
If you guys are interested in some training stuff, if you're working out, they've got workout stuff. They've got women's lines and everything as well.
Brilliant.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's I've built a lot of connections in the online space now, and I'm truly grateful
Mm.
for it as well, because
Mm.
it's just little old me out here in the world, just trying to make a difference. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's sort of what I try to do on my social media, and just awareness and
Mm.
advocacy as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I would encourage our listeners to check out your Instagram. Yeah, I've been following you, for a while now, and there's some really fantastic, stuff on there. And the clothing line again, it's really good, isn't it? I mean, any way we can talk, we can promote the mental health conversation, I think is good, through a clothing
Yep.
line in, whatever kind of sense. And if people want to are interested in joining the online group, the Aegis online group. Obviously, again, we'll put all the stuff up with the show notes. How do they start engaging with that, Logan?
Yeah, so the quickest way at this point in time would actually be just to follow me on Instagram. So if you
Okay.
go to logan.r.baker and then just send me a message that you're wanting to get involved in the mental health, and that gaming community, the community
Mm,
groups and stuff like that,
mm,
um, I can then pass on our Discord links, and then also our Twitch. And everything like
mm,
that as well, because everyone's welcome to join. And the good thing about the virtual space is
mm,
not
mm.
it's not exclusive to a geographical location as well. Like I
No.
do intend to have a lot of community events and stuff like that in my local area and in my
Mm,
state. I've already partnered with three tattoo studios, actually, one where I live, one an hour south, and then one 2 hours south. So
mm,
Brisbane and the Gold Coast as well. And I'm going to start. Well, I'm not going to fundraise. I'm just gonna front the money for it, but I'm going to
mm.
put the money up for people who have self-harm marks, like on their
Yeah,
arms or
yeah.
something like that, and I'm going to pay for the tattoo cover up for them as one of my initiatives.
Wow.
And I
That's
haven't actually
fantastic.
fundraised. I don't have a registered charity or anything I can do
Yeah.
that through, but I'm more than happy to do that out of my pocket if I can change someone's life, and really get past that past trauma and stuff like that by
Mm,
covering it up with some art.
yeah.
That'll make my year. So that's what I'm doing this year, and I have a few different people who I would like to collaborate with as well in that space.
Mm,
But yeah, that's sort of one of the initiatives that I want to push forward and do like a social group. And I
mm,
intend to get my motorbike license this year, and I want to create a bike group where we can get a whole bunch of men and women together
yeah.
who love kicking mental health's ass. And then we could go out there and then just catch up and have coffee and
Mm,
food and just talk and just create a community. It's all
mm,
about community at the end of the day. And if we have each
mm,
other's backs,
mm,
that's what it is all about for me. So
mm.
yeah, that's just a couple of the things that we're doing anyway.
I mean, I have to say, Logan, wow. It's amazing.
Oh,
I
I
absolutely,
appreciate that,
yeah, I
man. Thank you.
love what you're doing. It's, I mean, just to take what, I mean, the groups and but the tattooing, I've
Mm.
never heard anyone do that. I
I
just think
haven't
that's
either, to be
amazing.
honest.
Yeah,
And that's one of the next businesses that I want to do is a tattoo studio.
yeah,
Um, so I would like to actually, but I would like it to have a charity aspect of that as well, so I can fundraise to then get people in to do free tattoo cover-ups for self-harm marks and things like that. Because obviously, tattoos are very expensive.
they are.
So if
Yeah.
we can kind of just, combat that and then get higher accessibility, that's what I'd like to do as well.
Mm, yeah, incredible. Yeah, I have my own relationship. I've got tattoos myself. I hide them when I'm working, but yeah, I mean,
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
there's something really. I don't know. There's something really nice about that community as well. We don't have to talk about that particularly, but I don't know. There's just something nice about the community. Tattooists, the creativity. I don't know. It's a kind of
yeah.
subculture I really really like. I mean,
Yeah, I get along really well with most of the
yeah,
artists and everything. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I totally get it. They're a bit, I think that's because they were the alternative kids at school and stuff,
I
normally
think
the
so.
arty kids and stuff like
Mm,
that. So they didn't necessarily fit in either.
mm,
So I think that's for me anyway, that's where I can sort of connect with them and build these good relationships and
mm.
everything. So it's
Mm.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just to kind of rewind a little bit and just talk about the gratitude. Yeah, really agree with you. I mean, gratitude, it is so powerful, isn't it? And like
It
you
is.
say, yeah, I mean, we have a lot to be grateful for in the Western world, but there's always something to be grateful for, isn't there? The breath we
Yep.
take, the sun, the rain, and gratitude diaries, and really connecting with gratitude every
Mm.
day. There's a
Yep.
stack of research as well, isn't there, into how beneficial that is. I mean, it seems to some people when you try and introduce it almost a little bit hokey, but actually it can be a massive game changer, I think.
Yep.
And when you were talking about the sky and the perspective change, I mean that also a brilliant strategy. I guess you go out, you're connecting with nature, you're looking at the universe effectively, aren't you? Through, in your
Yep.
change in perspective that gives can be
Yeah.
absolutely enormous. I mean, we kind of coming to the end. There's a million questions I could ask you. I haven't got time to, but is there anything, Logan, that I've not asked you that you would like to say?
Um,
Anything we've not covered, maybe that you would like to?
not really
No.
particularly, to be honest. I just wanted to draw some awareness about, where everyone's sort of at and where I'm at, my challenges that I've faced, and
Mm.
to help people grow their perspective as well. In regards to that, actually, one thing that I did want to touch on was Wim Hof breathing as well. I don't know if
Yeah,
you're familiar with
I
Wim
am.
Hof breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of that. And if anyone out there who's interested in a quick way to sort of reduce your stress and anxiety, it is a great way to do that.
Mm.
If you're at a point where you're quite elevated, it's a great way. And this is what I do when I look up at the stars and things as well. I'll actually
Mm.
sit there, chest out and everything, and I'll do my Wim Hof breathing to get all those endorphins going as well. And then doing my sort of realizing how small I am, I guess, is what I do.
Yeah.
But it helps me astronomically, and yeah,
Mm.
I couldn't recommend Wim Hof breathing enough. And if you have access to an ice bath or a sauna as well,
Mm.
that those things are great for your health too.
Mm.
But those would be pretty much the only things.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, what is it, the Wim Hof breathing? Just how do you? I mean, how do you do it?
Yeah, so you can look it up online on YouTube. There's
Okay,
plenty of tutorials and stuff like that on YouTube, but it's just a way of inhaling and exhaling. And it's I think what do they call it? The physiological sigh or something like that as well
okay,
is another I can't remember if that's a name, don't quote me on it, but it's the something sigh. And when we have a big day and we go that kind of thing. It's actually a very good stress relief technique as well. But I think they recommend to breathe through your nose and then fill your lungs. And then as soon as you think it's full, then you take as much in as you can and then you let it out
Mm.
slowly, really empty
Mm.
your diaphragm and stuff like that. But that is also quite a good method that I've seen as well. And I've used it myself in the past.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean breathing techniques. Yeah, and like you say, people can just if they want to learn more, they can look it up on YouTube. Yeah, I've watched a
Yeah.
couple. He had a couple of shows out over here, and really interesting. And the cold as well. I mean, that's something that is really, really growing here. Get ice baths and cold showers and what that does to the
Mm.
nervous system. Yeah, so really, really beneficial. Logan, we've kind of run out of time, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. I mean, you're really an inspirational guy, if it's okay for me to say that. I
Oh,
just think
thank you. No,
I
I
just
really
think you're
appreciate that,
really
mate. Thank you.
inspirational. What you're doing, I just think is fantastic, and it really has been fantastic to meet you.
Yeah, no, and likewise, mate. I really appreciate your time and everything. So yeah, if you want me back for a part two, we can talk about other stuff anytime, Legend. I'd be more than happy to come back.
Yeah, well, we will definitely have you back for a part two at
Yeah,
some point.
perfect. No, sounds like a plan, Legend.
Okay, okay, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Logan again so much for coming on the show. I mean, as I said at the end of the show, what an inspirational guy. Goodness me, absolutely amazing. Kind of changing again, uh, lots of kind of suffering into a life of helping others, drawing meaning from that, and using, a lot of the things he's been through in his own life in order to help others. Um, Goodness me, it's just incredible, really, what he does. I mean, just pulling out one part, the ageist group with ex-military and ex-security. Sometimes I think on online groups, even though they often get poo-pooed, are easier for people to participate in. There's something about the separation, perhaps, and not being in a room and not having the pressure of sitting opposite people that I think can help people feel safe enough to open up. And I think, the way Logan is, capacity for empathy, compassion, great interpersonal skills, really open, I mean, that must really, really help, draw people out. I mean, as we've talked about on the show a lot, men do tend to internalize. There's lots of reasons for that. I mean, some of the societal messages around being male, are still quite prevalent, really. There's some quite implicit and also explicit messaging. Logan talked about kind of the tattoos and the resistance training, and and I guess that does break down barriers as well. In terms of certainly in terms of male clients. We talked a little bit around the different kind of organizations that he's created. His Insta page. I mean, I've been following Logan for a while, and I would really recommend that our listeners check out his Instagram page. There's loads of really great content on there, and as Logan said, he kind of updates it regularly. So definitely check that out. Some of the work he does internationally as well. People finding him. And the person he was talking about in Bali that found him, amazing. Again, I guess the online community can be poo-pooed, but reaching out and making international connections is totally facilitated, by online working. As always, you can find all of Logan's links on our show notes and on our social media sites. The audio will come out first, and then I'll add the YouTube onto the YouTube channel, #psychotherapy unflogged, a little bit later. Absolutely brilliant interview. Love talking to Logan, and hopefully we can get Logan to come back on. I mean, he also talked about resistance training in terms of mental health. Big advocate of that. Depending on, everyone has a different kind of ability to exercise, of course, but exercise and mental health, as regular listeners will know, is something that I really talk about a lot on the show. Loads of evidence around resistance training and how that improves mental health. And I notice it myself. If I kind of do weight training, I notice that it does change my mood. I do feel better. There's all sorts of ways that it affects body and mind. Logan also talked about gratitude, and that's something we have also touched on in the show. A stack of research on the benefits of gratitude, tons and tons of research gone, especially around from the positive psychology arm of psychology. Lots and lots of research around the benefits of gratitude diary. Lots of benefits from that, and literally it will take 5 minutes. You can even get apps now where you can do a gratitude diary, and this is massively reductive, but some of the research suggests that if you've got gratitude at the front of your conscious mind, it's very then difficult to overthink, to think more negatively, because gratitude is a bit of a protection for that. Also in terms of perspective, Logan mentions perspective on the top of his Insta page, and just zooming out, looking at the stars. I mean, just being in nature, awe, and in order to kind of maybe objectify what's going on for us, to provide a bit of a wider context, and actually to change brain states. Is another really, really, fantastic strategy. And I guess it didn't surprise me that Logan is training to be a counselor. That seems to be the next step. So it'll be another thing to add to, already his, an enormous toolbox of things that he does. Brilliant interview. Very, very inspirational guy. I really, really enjoyed that one. Going forwards, next week, I'm interviewing a Jungian psychologist, psychotherapist from Arizona. Getting a few more American guests on, which is great. I'm a big fan of Jungian work, and see my smile. I'm really, really looking forward to that one. She's written numerous books as well, Susan's Thoughts, so that should be a really, really good interview. And then a couple of weeks after that, I'm interviewing Gary Evans, who's a renowned expert in ecotherapy and forest bathing. As again, our regular listeners will know, I always squeeze an episode in this area into every series because I love it and I think it's really useful for mental health, really useful actually for the planet, to get people to re-engage with nature. So I'm absolutely really looking forward to that one. Yeah, Gary brings so much knowledge and experience in that area. And he sent me some of the research papers to have a look at before the show, and they're fascinating. So really, really looking forward to that one. So yeah, getting into series 6 now, really, really enjoying it. Lots more to come. So thanks again to Logan. It's put me in a really good mood interviewing Logan. I mean, I'm so lucky on the show. I get to talk to so many inspirational people from all over the world. And anyway, as always, look after yourselves, look after each other, and look after the planet. And I'll see you really soon on the next episode. Thanks for listening.